Welcome to the apex of sports ownership, the Apex Athletic Collective.
Welcome in, everyone, to episode 91 of Instigate Success, building an ABA franchise. Your host, as always, Jake Schoen, aka Jakey Muffins, here with Frosty tonight, one of our other co-owners. Always great to have you on here. Welcome back in, Frosty.
Hey, man, it's great to be on. It's been a long time.
Yeah.
Now in the off season, I'm happy to be here.
Yeah, the OG host of
That's right.
Instigate Success.
That's right. Second best, though. Second best ever.
Yeah. It's crazy. We're on episode 91. We are 9 episodes out from 100. We've got Night J right here as always in the comments. Always great to see you in there.
Love it. 91 is crazy. We got to do something big for 100.
Yeah, we definitely will. I know I think 50 rolled around. I made like a little clip with, like a little bit from every episode. So
That's
I
awesome.
think I'll probably do something like that. But we'll have to do something big too for 100. That's a big number.
For sure.
That also means we've been around for like a while too, because if we're doing one a week, that's over a year. I mean, we've been around for a
2
bit.
weeks in a year. We're at like a year and a half.
Yeah.
Over a year and a half, yeah.
So
It's been a crazy journey. Let's keep it going.
Yeah, definitely. And we finished 2 seasons. We are in the off season of going into season 3 of the ABA for the Instigators. We did have our first off-season event for the Instigators this past week. I know you were on site for that. I'm here in Florida, so I'll let you talk a little bit about this. We did have tryouts.
Yeah. It was a great event. We had more guys. It's weird. Usually in tryouts in May, you don't get a ton of guys. We still got more guys than we ever got in Clinton at this tryout. We were in double digits of the number of guys that were there. And tryouts for every ABA team are super important, especially us. Nearly every player on our team that's ever suited up for the Instigators has come through one of these tryouts. And so when you look at like, oh no, the Noblesville Boom, the G League team here just had a tryout. Typically what the G League does when they have a tryout, there's like 4, it's an open tryout because they like want to make money, but really there's like 3 or 4 guys there that they really want to see. And so the rest are just kind of there to give them money. But for us, every single player we've had has gone through that tryout, right? And so it was a good event. The coaches Dobbs ran it with some of the guys there as well, and did a good job. We're going to have another one in July to try to round out this roster. Our goal is to have a full roster rounded out by the end of August, which gives them September and October to kind of play together and learn each other's tendencies and build chemistry and all that good stuff. And then, move into the season, end of October, beginning of November.
Yeah, really, really important event here. First tryouts. As you said, we're going to be having that one in July as well. But I think we learned from, the first season going into the second season, especially, is the importance of trying to get this stuff done ahead of time. That way we can build that team chemistry. And I think we saw this past season, the team chemistry going into season 2, really, really seemed to be a little bit better rolling in the season.
Yeah, it was. I think there was a little, if I were to give one criticism, we had a lot of transition last year of players. And so that kind of killed that chemistry that we'd built up a little bit. But we have a number of players returning from last year to this year. And then KJ says, we got any standout players that are getting signed from the tryout? Can't announce that yet. We're going to continue to go through the process. We'll be announcing a roster later in the summer. But there were some players there for sure that we want a second look at that we're going to bring back and keep working on to see. We're to the point now where we're in going into our 3rd season. We have guys, and we kind of know those guys' roles. So we're really looking for 2 things: players that fit specific roles or players that pop, right? Like that may already be in a role, but maybe it's a huge upgrade for us. that we didn't expect before. But yeah, getting them started now. The season ended a little over a month ago now, with the Fury winning the championship. And so now, already early in the season, we're holding these trials because we want to make sure we're on the same page on the types of players we're looking for. We're getting to them before other teams are, and still trying to build a team and get team chemistry even in the off season.
Yeah, you mentioned the Fury. I don't think we've talked about this at least off camera or anything in the off season on this. Do we know our division for this upcoming season? Or
We
not quite
do.
yet? Yeah.
We do actually. I'm gonna pull it up. So we're back in the red division.
Okay.
I'll pull it up here on my email while we're talking. But we're back in the red division where I think we belong. The ABA changed the schedule rules a little bit this year. So now every team has to play 20 games, no more, no less. And the way it works before, just so you all know, it was minimum 16 games, maximum 20 games. But we had some teams that played more than 20 because of cancellations like we saw last year. They'd schedule more than 20, wouldn't get as many cancellations out as they thought they would, and so they played more. I think the Lions are a good example of that. This is not like criticizing the Lions. I think that a smart strategy by them to make sure they get enough games because you just never know. But so what they did this year, and you had to find all those teams, right? And so I would spend months calling around every team I could find to get a schedule. This year, what they did is they assigned, based on your playoff rating last year, 6 teams that you have to play twice a year. So 12 games are already decided for us based on our division and our standings last year and other region teams. But yeah, we're in the red division. The teams in the red division are the Legends, Indiana Legends, Indiana Lions, the Louisville Pros, the Ohio Kings, the Jackson Boom, the Indiana Shuckers, the new expansion team that has joined. We know that name well. The Nashville Aces, the Indiana Kings, which is a new expansion team out of Columbus, Indiana, and then the Hoosier State Instigators. So that's our 10-team division. So that's where we'll be this year.
Well, that's some breaking news here. Not only for our fans, but for myself here too. But yeah, I'm glad that we're back in that. I think that it feels like we're both from the fan-controlled football side. It feels like the OG side of things, compared to so going back to the roots. I guess we won't have the defending champions in our division this year, but the Lions and us, that was a great friendly rivalry, and a lot of those other teams. The Kings, we gotta get our first win against the Kings. We haven't gotten that quite yet.
Yeah.
But yeah, a lot of teams we played against, and a lot of friendly rivalries.
Yeah, I'm excited to play the Louisville Pros. Always give us a tough time. I think we're 2-2 against them lifetime. I'm excited to see the Shuckers. I expect now that the Shuckers are in the ABA, we may see some former Instigators play against us for the first time. That's only happened to us in one game before, where Yogi Anderson played against us for the Legends in season 1. But I expect for the first time, a lot of our guys are from there, right? A lot of our guys came from the IBL, which is run out of the Shuckers home facility by their owner. I expect we'll see some guys return home for the Shuckers. I can tell you our 6 teams we're going to play if you want. Hell, I don't care.
Yeah, we might as well.
Yeah, so we've got the Peoria Pit Bulls. It looks like the Missouri Capitals. What's this team's name? West Michigan. Let me find them. They're on my list, but West Michigan, the Indiana Shuckers, the St. Louis Spirits, and the Indiana Legends. We have to play all those teams twice this year. I can also tell you, because I'm working on the schedule now, we'll play the Ohio Kings twice this year as well. So I just gave you 14 of our 20 games right there.
Yeah.
So hopefully we'll have that schedule. My goal is to have the schedule finalized by the end of June.
Okay, that'd be cool. A little bit earlier than normal. But like you said, a little bit different as far as the scheduling goes this year. I do know, from being behind the scenes, the past 2 years, you really do. You sit down and you have that whole spreadsheet, and it is a painstaking task for sure. I've seen what you did on that.
It is. And then, undoubtedly someone has a different note than you do, and so it's a little bit of a mess. I like that the league is doing a little bit more to centralize the schedule process this year. Honestly, I like the teams we're playing against because, it gives us some teams that are close to us, some teams that we played really well. Peoria, we went 1-on-1 with last year, before the fight. And so I think the Lake Hawks were a team we were going to play, but they had issues where they couldn't play. So I'm excited for this. I'm excited for this roster. Don't worry, I'm definitely going to put some of those other teams we're more familiar with in this as well. So we get kind of a good mixture of new and old.
Yeah, and I think one of the potential benefits of this is with it being based off of the playoff rankings, we might have a little bit of an easier schedule. So maybe our first winning season on the record.
Yeah, I definitely think that's possible. Not to say anything negative about these teams. These are all really good teams. The ABA is full of good teams, especially in the Central Division. But yeah, last year I booked us really strong and had us. I think we had a top 25 team in 13 of the 15 games we played, or something like that. 11 of the 15 games we played. None of these teams. I don't think any of these teams will start off as top 25 teams this season. So it'll be interesting to see how we do.
Yeah, definitely lots to look forward. We've got some other stuff coming up in the summer though. We've talked about this before. And I've got some graphics. These aren't for us necessarily, but we will be having another show coming back here soon. And let's pull up. This was back from last season, an episode of Amateur Night. We'll be returning. Last year we did the Gold Cup games. I have this up here. We made our own logos for like some of these teams. I just have this one against the Blue Demons because if you follow the Minotaur streaming, I believe they've been making some of the logos. So I was gonna do a little side-by-side comparison compared to what we had last season compared to what they have for their announcement of the team logos for teams that will be returning back in the Gold Cup. So Blue Demons was one of them. I think the Wet Bandits were the other one that we had played against that they had logos for. So that's what we had.
Yeah.
And this is what it actually is apparently. So a little bit different.
I gotta be honest, I like both of theirs better.
They're good. I mean,
those are both really good logos. The Blue Demons looks dope. The Wet Bandits, hilarious.
Yeah, no, the Wet Bandits is great. I mean, that's definitely maybe a little bit of a Home Alone inspiration on that one.
For sure, yeah.
But yeah, I think I went a completely different route on that one actually. I think I've got theirs. Yeah, no, I went with like a kind of a cowboy type of thing.
A sweating cowboy.
Yeah.
Yours is more moist bandits.
Yeah, I guess so.
No, yours are great too. Don't get me wrong, but those are next level. Like,
yeah, no, Minotaur. I mean, we've seen them do some of our games as well. They do an amazing job with everything they do.
Yeah.
But yeah, Amateur Night is going to be coming back in June.
Yeah. Yeah, next Saturday, Amateur Night. We're not playing in the Gold Cup this year. Our team has elected to play in some other leagues. In fact, they're already doing that. But instead, we're bringing amateur 25 years and older baseball. The Pendleton Penguins, which is a local team here in Indianapolis. One of their pitchers, a really great guy that I know named Corey on the team. It's a super fun league. Listen, the IBL has 10 teams in the Indiana Baseball League. It's a wooden bat men's baseball league, just like the Major League Baseball, very similar rules. And so we have those streams. We're going to start playing those Saturdays at 1. Starting next Saturday. What is that? June 7th? Is that right? June 6th, something like that. But check 7th. It out. It's going to be a lot of fun. We're going to have some of the players on the team join us. We may even sell some Penguins merch for them to help fundraise for their team. Their team's not a pro team. that it's a rec league, and so they pay to play, and the fees are expensive, but those guys are really committed. They play 15 games a year. I'm excited for it. Jake, I got to ask you before we get on to it, though, how much do you know about baseball? How are you feeling about announcing baseball games with me?
If I'm being honest with you, baseball was the sport I played the most, so I do know about baseball
Okay,
pretty well. I just got out of baseball like once I went into high school. It was like, but all of elementary, middle school, I played baseball for I don't know 10 or so years.
nice.
So
So you know it.
familiar. I just got out of it for a bit, but I watch it on occasion now.
Good. Great. I'm excited for it. It's going to be a lot of fun. I don't play in the first game. I was actually in France when the first game was played. I do play in the second game. I'm a relief pitcher this year for the team, / manager of the team. So a lot of fun. It's the most competitive team the Penguins have ever had. It's their 4th year in existence. So I'm really excited about it. We want to invite folks to Amateur Night is something we want to grow, right? So these are kind of our proof of concept episodes, both last year and this year with something controlled. But we want like kids sports. We don't care what it is, right? We want to air it because it's a lot of fun, and we want to give shout outs to all the people playing sports that aren't necessarily like the big 4 professional leagues, but just like doing their thing and living the dream for a few more seasons before their body doesn't let them anymore. So, yeah, it's a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. I love Amateur Night. It's a great opportunity if you guys do have footage that you want to get shown. It's also, like you said, a great proof of concept with the Apex Athletic Collective. Obviously we've got the Instigators as our basketball team, but we do like to venture out and see, what other interests our fans have and what other sports they'd be interested in.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of that, just a little bit of a side note, Jake, have you caught the dark web wrestling streams on Apex? What have you thought about those?
I honestly have not. I've only caught like a few minutes of a couple, or the two that we've
Yeah,
got. So I'm gonna have to sit down and watch them in their entirety. I did see. I looks like I made a brief appearance at least on the
you
when I jumped in.
Yeah, you did both episodes. Jakey Muffins is one of the characters in Dark Web Wrestling. If you haven't watched it, it's a role-playing wrestling game just to kind of gauge people's interest in pro wrestling content. But you have a faction, the Muffin Maestros. Knight, I know, watches every episode. He's a big fan of the Goon and Pure Garbage. Yeah. And so it's a lot of fun. It's role players playing wrestling who love wrestling. And we're excited to kind of use that to we've always, kind of half joked, but maybe not talked about, do we run a wrestling promotion that's fan run one day? And this is kind of right now we're setting the stage to give people kind of a feel of how the role playing works and everything, but we're going to expand into like fan led content. The first kind of small snippet of that was that Pure Garbage in the first episode and the kind of showcase episode was kind of one of the most talked about characters in that episode. And so in the draft in the second episode, I moved him up, and he was actually drafted number 2 overall instead of where he was going to be before, which was much lower. So just small impacts for the fans there, but there's going to be a lot more as it goes along. They're each about an hour and a half long, so they're not super long, but it's a lot of fun with some good guys. And I told these guys, if we ever do start a real dark web wrestling promotion, the belt lineage will stay the same. So if one of these guys wins the belt before we start a regular promotion, they'll be the first ever champion, even when it's a real promotion. So it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. It sounds like it. I know we do have a lot of fans, that are fans of wrestling. I think that's a great, next step if we do jump into the next venture, the next real life thing. I think that would be an amazing opportunity to do that.
Yeah, totally agree. Yeah.
I've got to ask though, when it comes to the baseball games,
Yeah.
do you guys use juiced bats? I know I've heard a lot of controversy on that this year.
Yeah, it's so funny. One of our players actually did buy a torpedo bat a couple weeks ago and debuts it in our last game. Spoilers, he didn't get a hit. But we do. The big controversy for our league, honestly, was that they changed baseballs last season. We used to use the official minor league baseball, and then one of the deals that we made to play on one of the fields here, because we mostly play on like private high school fields is where we play most of our games. But there's a big sports complex here that plays a lot of baseball tournaments on turf fields, and so the league wanted to play there more. So they agreed to buy baseballs through the like company that runs that. And there's been a lot of pitcher controversy over like who the baseball favors compared to the last one. And so that's been our big controversy. It's not as cool as a torpedo bat, but it's just as meaningful. I'll tell you, I had to make a lot of changes as a pitcher based on the ball because the seams felt different. And that's a big deal in baseball, as you know. So one torpedo bat and lots of baseball talk.
Yeah. Being a pitcher, I gotta ask the question, how fast do you throw?
Yeah, low to mid 70s. I'm not burning it up on the mound. I am a junk ball pitcher. Think of like that Tom Glavine, Greg Maddux type that just kind of like paints the corners and moves the ball around a lot. So, I think the last game I had, I pitched 4 innings. I'm not going to tell you the stats because we're going to watch it, but I think I threw like 8 fastballs in 4 innings.
Okay.
A lot of breaking balls, a lot of changeups. So I don't throw hard. The league, though, there are some guys that touch mid 80s. And so we have some guys that used to play minor league baseball and independent league baseball that plays in this league. So the talent is really good, including like there's one guy who is the brother of a really famous Major League Baseball pitcher that plays in the league, who played in the Australian Baseball League and is like very talented. Some guys that made it to like AA and AAA with the Orioles. So there's some good players, and there's guys like me who hadn't played since high school and decided to pick up a baseball in his 30s and see what he could do.
Well, you're technically like a professional well, you got the baseball, the pro-am, and you also got basketball. I mean, I think you at least had the Frosty jersey on the court for a couple of ABA action.
Yeah, that's right. That is my one goal this year. I don't care if we go 0-20. I'm going to play a few minutes on the court this year as the celebrity player. I'm going to get into better shape. Maybe I'll start like chronicling it on the Patreon, my journey to get into better shape, and then play maybe like in the last game of the season or something.
Yeah, I came across this like the past week or so. Looks like Papa Shot is actually doing a national championship.
Really?
So maybe we'll have to do like an owners competition at some point. It's a little late notice, but I seen they're doing a qualifier in Chicago. I think the 11th of June. It's like midweek. In a couple of weeks, they're doing a qualifier in Chicago.
Yeah, sign me up. My Papa Shot is really good. I'll tell you my strategy. I use both arms.
Yeah.
I shoot with both arms. So good. We got, as KJ says, we got the trash kit ball tournament coming. I would like us this year to see if we can get the owners back in a scrimmage with the players again. That was a lot of fun. I scored 4 points and had 8 rebounds. I'm just saying.
Yeah.
But yeah, I definitely want to see us out there more.
Yeah, I never got the chance to participate in any of those, so I'm gonna have to get myself signed up for one of them. I'll be honest though, I have not touched the court in a long time, so I don't know how my shot is, and I was never much of a shooter. I played more of like power forward center, which in this league probably with my height is not ideal.
Yeah, it's not great for you.
Yeah.
But no, we'll figure it out. We'll get you out there with everybody.
Yeah, but no, I thought Papa Shot, that'd be cool, if somehow we got involved with that. But yeah, no, I'm the same way on that. I try to just go with both hands back and forth. I also am really heavy on the backboard. Typically, I just try to chuck it at the backboard.
Yeah, no, that's we have the exact same strategy. Oh, I got it pulled up. I'm going to look at this. We're going to look into this.
Yeah.
That's so funny.
Yeah, and
Chicago, June 11th at Slugger's Bar.
Yeah. It says the national championship is streaming live on ESPN 8, the Ocho.
Yeah, not surprised by that, but also delighted by that. That's so funny. Yeah, there's no cost to join.
Yeah.
Wednesday, June 8th at 6 p.m. Eastern. The other sport that really interests me, I try to think of like outside the box sports that are really interesting. is roller derby is really making some headlines again with the rise, thank God, of women's sports and popularity. So I'm going to try to check out some roller derby stuff this year, see what that looks like as well, because that's a really cool sport that I wish would get more publicity as well. So that'd be cool to see. And I know you and I have a roller derby project that we're getting ready to announce. Maybe we should make an announcement, set some dates and make an announcement next week on it. But I'm really excited about that project as well.
Yeah, no, I'm definitely looking forward to that. Roller derby, I'll be honest, I don't understand how the points work at all in that, but I've been to roller derby events in person, and it's always a really fun event to watch.
Yeah, I actually tried out one time to be a roller derby referee in college. Didn't know the rules, but I didn't know if that was required or not. Turns out it was, so I didn't make it. But yeah, so we'll talk about that next week, our roller derby project. But I think for us, we're kind of in the spot with AAC where we just we talked about particularly the Twitch channel that we're streaming on live right now being kind of a catch-all for all kinds of sports content. Kind of like clearly not as big, but like one of the things I think of is like the original ESPN that was like filming all kinds of stuff and putting out all kinds of like alternative sports, lower end pro sports, high end amateur sports, and doing that kind of stuff. So we want to do all kinds of like just kind of feeler projects to see what grabs people, what interests them. And so it keeps the content going on Twitch, which is good for us as well, so that people remember to check in between seasons. But we want Apex to be year round when it comes to sports and not just basketball. So that's kind of the evolution of Apex while we're still building and very much focused on what the Instigators are doing.
Yeah, you mentioned the Apex as a collective here. Let me see. I'll pull up the Oakland Ballers schedule so far this season. We can take a look at that and see how they're doing on the season.
Yeah, I think they're 5-4 right now. They're about to play their 10th game, I think, tomorrow. So their season's just getting underway. Yeah, here we go.
Yeah, here we go. So yeah, their season just kicked off on the 20th. And we could see on there a few of their games. They started off the season with a win.
Yep.
So that was good.
Come from behind win. I think they were down 3-1 or 4-1 and came back and won that.
Yeah, lots of high scoring games though to start off the year.
Yeah, it's interesting. I think our offense is okay, but our pitching, particularly starting pitching, has been a struggle. Although it's super early in the season, but we've pitched 6 guys, so some of the guys are just getting their second time, and so the pitcher that pitched last night, Matsuoka, pitched a gem last night, and he's been on top of things with an ERA under 2. So it's early in the season. Offense looks good. Pitching looks like it just needs a little work. And actually, it looks like they're playing right now against Grand Junction. So
yeah, it looks like their game just started over there. But they're the Oakland baseball team now. Like I said, I just got back into baseball a little bit. I realized the A's, they don't have like a city attached to them this year.
That's right. They're playing out of Sacramento for the next couple of years until their stadium in Las Vegas is built.
Yeah, that's interesting. But we've got not too far from me. We've got the Rays, and they're playing out of the George Steinbrenner instead of
the Yankees. Yeah,
it is. It's so weird. So that stadium is honestly, that's normally where I park when I go to Buccaneers games. So I'm used to seeing it just like as the Yankees spring training stadium, but they have it decked out with the Rays stuff this year.
Yeah, that's so weird. What a tough situation for them. Clearly outside of their control, right? The storm ripped the roof off Tropicana, right? Is it still Tropicana? I think it is.
I think so. At least that's what I refer to it as.
Yeah, I think it is too. But ripped that off completely. So they're playing there. But I just read actually a couple days ago, Oakland, the city of Oakland announced, I think, a 30-year lease with the Oakland Ballers to keep them in Oakland. The team just raised something like $3 million in their recent run of investments, which obviously, thanks to our fans, we participated in. So we own a very, very, very tiny ownership percentage of the Oakland Ballers. And I'm excited to see what they do this year. It's interesting. This league reminds me a lot of maybe not the ABA, but maybe like the TBT or something like that, where they're not affiliated with Major League Baseball. It's an independent league, the Pioneer League, as you can see the logo up there. But it's guys that are like really good, that are just kind of like living out their dream. Some of them are trying to get to the majors. Some of them are coming down from the majors, frankly, right? And will never play in the majors again. You had some really great players that have played in leagues like this. Roger Clemens, I think, played in 1 year with one of his sons in a league like this. Tracy McGrady, and after he quit playing basketball, played in an independent baseball league. And so they're fun. It's interesting. I have the Indianapolis Indians here, who are the AAA affiliate of the Pirates. And so you get to see Paul Skeens and but those guys are moving on. Here with the Ballers, these guys likely aren't. This is where their career will stop. And so it's very much like a pro franchise that you have there, which is really cool. And for them to be connected and filling a gap in Oakland that greedy owners took away is really cool to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I've seen they've had a couple of celebrity owners jump on in the off season too. I know Too Short was one of them.
Yeah, I've been Too Short. Who would have guessed?
Yeah, I know. But yeah, the whole community of Oakland, it seems like, is really rallying behind them. They've lost a lot of their sports teams recently.
Yeah. Although there's rumors, I don't know if you saw it, but there's rumors that the UFL is bringing a team to Oakland next year. So they just they went through and trademarked 4 team names. The UFL did, and they were all former USFL teams, and one of them was the Oakland team. They may be getting another team like that, which I think makes sense for them, because what the Ballers have shown, and what may be ultimately good for the city of Oakland, the Ballers have shown that there's sports fans there, especially for kind of these rebel teams, right? The Ballers are very much a rebel team of the Oakland Athletics. And we've seen what St. Louis Battlehawks have done attendance-wise for the UFL as the rebel team of St. Louis. And so I'm trying to see what the name of that team name is. It was the original USFL team that was there. I don't see it in this article, but yeah. So, maybe, Oakland will become kind of the mecca of the kind of rebel leagues teams. The Oakland Invaders, that was the team name, which is also a cool name. So maybe they'll get that team as well.
Yeah, that would be cool. I know UFL. I haven't kept up on it recently, but I did see. I think Destroying may have been in the league.
Yeah, Destroying's still in the league. He's the kicker for the Brahmas. Last year he got injured and ended up only playing a couple games, but he's been healthy this whole year and he's playing pretty well. So shout out to Destroying, one of our former co-owners. Mine. But yeah, he's looking good out there. It's interesting. Destroying, not to get off on a tangent, but I'm going to. Destroying was the famous story for those of you that don't know Destroying. He quit college football because of his YouTube channel was making too much money. If Destroying were in college now with the NIL deals, that dude would be making bank and probably kicking in the NFL. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
just right guy, wrong time sort of thing. And so I'm happy to see what he's doing with the Brahmas.
Yeah, he's got such an interesting story, and like you said, nowadays it would have worked out perfectly for him.
Yeah.
The other guy, both of us being fan controlled guys, I always go back to some of that stuff. But the other guy that was almost on the flip side, I feel like he did the same stuff, but just didn't get caught, was Johnny Manziel.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. And then the controversy with Reggie Bush and all that. But yeah, Johnny Manziel was signing stuff and getting paid the entire time he was in college.
Mm-hmm.
Difference is, I guess, that those signatures aren't worth much now. But
Yeah, probably not.
they probably are, actually. You know what I mean? They probably did. Yeah, he's not an NFL Hall of Famer or anything like that, but he's still a pretty famous dude, or infamous, depending on how you look at it now.
Yeah.
He had the best quote in FCF history, though. Win or lose, we booze.
Yeah.
One of the best things ever said on a football field. Well, I want to talk about something completely. Let's just talk about sports since we're here.
Yeah.
I don't know if you saw this Athletic United Softball League. Have you heard about this?
I have not.
Okay, well, they're starting their season. It's Athletes United is this like women's run sports company that's like run like touring tournaments. But they just launched their first pro softball league, airing on ESPN throughout the year. But they just announced they signed a deal with Major League Baseball as an investor into the league, and so they begin their season next week in Rosemont, Illinois. They do a touring model like the PLL did, and like the FCF had planned to do, right, where they take the entire league to city upon city upon city. But they start next week. I'm really excited for it. Adults, women's softball finally getting kind of a fair professional look, and it looks like interested with big investors and big sponsors. I'm really excited to see it. Ready to tune into ESPN next week. Watch that league kick off. Only four teams this year, but I'm sure they'll expand soon if it's a success. The players are paid a minimum of $45,000 a year, up to $75,000 a year. So I think it's the first like real opportunity for women to play softball in the United States as a professional sport, and I'm excited to see it.
Yeah, no, that's a big thing. ESPN's a huge deal on that.
Yeah.
And you mentioned it. We're finally starting to see a little bit of that rise of the professional side of women's sports. For the longest time, it's just been collegiate is basically like the only one that's got the market when it comes to broadcasting and such. But the WNBA is picking up. We've got this as well. So hopefully that brings a new wave of sports.
Yeah, I definitely think so. Even here in Indiana, right, we got the Fever that are taking off, even though Caitlin Clark is injured right now, out 2 weeks. But we also have the Indiana Wolves women's basketball team playing right now, which is in a league, the WABA, or not the WABA, the WABL, Women's American Basketball League. But and they're doing great. Our players volunteer there. We're kind of building a relationship with them as kind of a sister franchise. I'm hoping eventually to get some of their games on here as well. But they're doing really well. Attendance is really good. Sponsorships are doing really well. They seem to be really succeeding as well. And so that's nice to see because it's building kind of that depth that we're seeing of women's basketball. And they have kind of semi-breaking news here, but they needed a coach for this weekend. So our coach has volunteered to coach that game for this weekend. So she'll be coaching the women's basketball team this weekend, the Indiana Wolves. So if you're a fan of the Instigators, you're a fan of basketball, like give the Wolves a follow. They're doing some really cool stuff. And our team actually scrimmages with them every Thursday so that both teams can kind of get better and play together. So it's really cool to see leagues and teams like that being able to kick off and do some things.
Yeah, no, that's definitely some cool insider knowledge. A great opportunity for coach there too, but a great partnership and community for us to build with.
Yeah, absolutely. We're excited to see what they're doing. The games are really fun and exciting to go to, and a lot of our guys are running the stat sheets, or they're running the scoreboard, or just hanging out watching the games. And like I said, every Thursday we go and play with them. So it's a lot of fun. It's been really cool to see them grow in their first season.
And are they based in Fishers like us, or a little bit further?
No, they're in on the east side of Indianapolis.
Okay.
Yeah. So they play out of I think a high school there is where they play out of, which is cool. But yeah, let me pull up their website here. It says all home games are paid at the arena. I've never tried to order tickets online, so I wasn't sure. First Baptist Athletics, as it looks like, is where they play. That's the name of the facility, which is right there on the east side of Indianapolis. So, but yeah, they're fun to watch. I'll drop I'll drop their website in the chat for folks. Just give them a follow if you can, because they're doing some good stuff.
We're talking about, in basketball, we've got the Eastern Conference Finals. I'm sure you've been watching those.
Of course, yeah.
I'm sure you're probably pulling for the Pacers, but I'll hear your opinion on the series so far.
Yeah, has the playoffs been exciting this year in basketball and the NBA? It's so interesting, to hype up my Pacers a little bit here. So they do an anonymous player survey. It comes out right as the playoffs start, where the players have anonymously named Halliburton the most overrated player in the league. And the guy goes on a tear, right? Like, unlike anything we've seen in Indiana since Reggie Miller. You know what I mean? Is just killing folks. That's really cool to see. It's really cool on the Western side to see the Thunder rising up, SGA winning the MVP and now leading that team really impressively, frankly, through the Western Conference, without much trouble. And so whether we get the Knicks or hopefully the Pacers, it's going to be really interesting. It's going to be a really fun game to watch if you like basketball. Pacers, one of the fastest teams in the league, right? Most athletic. They push the pace. They remind me of those like old school Knicks teams that were just like running up and down the court. You got the Knicks with Jalen Brunson, who's playing really well. They got Cat. And then, unfortunately, I think, for Knicks fans, the Knicks are going to lose tomorrow night. We got a battle. If that happens, something you don't see often in the NBA, a battle of two teams who have not won an NBA championship. Right. The Pacers last time they won a championship was in the ABA, one of two Indiana teams to win an ABA championship. Right. And so that's what I'm pulling for, besides the fact that I was like, I'm from Indiana and I'm an Indiana Pacers fan, but I just want a new team winning a championship would be super exciting, especially two like small market teams that have kind of built themselves without being able to go out and sign these big players and make these huge trades. Like, yeah, I would love for the Pacers to have been able to trade for like a LeBron James or Karl Anthony Towns. That's just not going to happen. And so we got to capitalize when we get these guys like Halliburton that just like have a chip on their shoulder and play hard. What's your prediction? Who's winning the championship this year?
Man, that is such a tough question. I'll be honest. So, I don't know if I have a favorite team. I guess I'd say I'd be a Heat fan now, just because they got Jaquez. But I thought the Cavs looked really good, and then they just got destroyed basically when they played the Pacers. But they were also playing the Heat in the first round, so maybe that wasn't the greatest comparison.
They had a lot of injuries too, right?
They did have some injuries in there too, but I don't know. OKC's been really solid, so I think I'd be leaning towards them right now. But I think it would be awesome, if the Pacers do make it, and I would be pulling for the Pacers over the Knicks, even though I have family up in New York and I went to school up in New York,
right?
But having a former ABA team, former champion in the ABA in the finals, I think that you'd have to pull for them. But I think what would be interesting too is if it is Pacers and OKC, it is two teams that both had Paul George at one point.
Yeah, that's a good point. I didn't think about that. Man, Paul George, like when he was a Pacer, man, he was everything. And then when he wasn't.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, I agree with KJ. I think the Thunder are unstoppable. They're playing on such a high level now. The only thing I can hope for, honestly, is they get cold, waiting for this series that might go 7 games, which I think it will. I think the series will go 7 games. I think we'll get a repeat of last year where the Pacers beat the Knicks in Madison Square Garden, Game 7. But OKC, I don't know how anyone stops them. They're so talented.
Yeah, and they're such a young team too. That's a team built like for a potential dynasty there.
Yeah, they're gonna be a problem for the next 3-5 years for sure. Really, all three of these teams that are left will be. You know what I mean? Like the Knicks are probably the oldest team out of the three, and they're not old. You know what I mean? They're all guys in their prime, and the Pacers are relatively young as well.
Yeah, and with Brunson, we can tie this back. You know, he was on the Mavs. Mavs had that huge trade with Luca.
Yeah,
I thought maybe the league was trying to arrange it so the Lakers were going to have a huge push in the playoffs. But we saw in the draft lottery, the Mavs won that lottery. What do you think on that? Do you think, maybe there's
no,
a little bit of some manipulation with that?
I will tell you, and I mean this completely unironically. I believe the NBA draft lottery is rigged.
Yeah.
Right? Like, come on, LeBron going to the Cavs. You know what I mean? There's like too many
Mhm.
instances where it just like is too convenient for me. So I think it's rigged. Yeah, the Mavericks fans so pissed off this year that they got rid of Luca for nothing, basically, is what it felt like to them. And then all of a sudden they're satisfied because they get a lottery pick. They get the number one pick in a lottery. Sorry, like too convenient for me. Let me tell you an interesting stat that I heard the other day that does not have any bearing. I always love like ESPN's department goes in and finds like the most obscure stats.
Yeah.
And they said that the Pacers are the first team ever to make back-to-back conference championships, being a 4 seed or lower, both times. That's I don't know what that says about the Pacers.
Yeah. No,
You know,
that's an interesting stat.
they're mediocre during the regular season, but like apparently the most overrated player in the playoffs or the most overrated player in the league gets his team to the conference championship 2 years in a row, mostly on the road. So, who knows?
Yeah, and he's had some crazy shots to end some of these games, just ridiculous.
Yeah, yeah. The choke shot that he did, that like bouncer that goes in like against the Knicks, nuts. When they scored something like 7 points and just under a minute to tie the game up against the Cavs in Game 2 last series. Some of the stuff that you just like would not have believed once, let alone I think the 3 times that they've been able to do that. Even the first game against the Knicks, I think they were down 19 at one point and came back and and won it. Like crazy stuff. It like in some ways, like you get that feeling like a team is like on a destiny run. They feel a little bit like that right now, but eventually that runs to an end, and so it'll be interesting to see where it runs to an end, whether they get all the way through the playoffs or whether they, eventually come back down to earth a little bit and get some of those unlucky bounces.
Yeah, no, the runs in the games, they've gotten to the point where like I tell my brother, he's always asking about, bets on the games and whatnot. I'm always like, whenever it's like a 20-point lead, I'm like, bet on the other team just in case, because it seems like in these past couple of series, it's crazy. Like the teams will be down by crazy amounts, and I mean, we've seen it in the ABA on our side too. Like
No.
basketball is a game of runs.
Yep. Yeah. Well, in the game the Knicks won to make it 2-1, they were down over 20 points in that game at one point. And they came back and did it. So, yeah, absolutely. But I think basketball is better and worse for it, right? As a fan, like I felt both of those this week, right? Like, how do we blow a 20-point lead, but also like, okay, we're down 20, no big deal. You know what I mean? Like, I feel it both ways, and so I'm conflicted about it. But the games are interesting, right? Like, you want to tune in and watch because it's never over until the whistle blows.
Definitely. And you're local to the Indy area. There's a big event, I think last weekend there,
Yeah.
the Indy 500. Do you tune into that? Have you ever been to the Indy 500?
So I've never been. I just moved back here 6 years ago. But I am a huge motorsports fan. I don't know if you knew this about me. I'm a big Formula One guy, big IndyCar guy. I watch all the other IndyCar races, as well as this one. But it was crazy in Indianapolis because you have the Indianapolis 500, and then you have Game 3 of the Eastern Conference Finals in Indianapolis
yeah.
that night. And so the place is crowded. Plus, you got Kyle Larson going for the 1,200-mile run. Lots of storylines. One of the weirdest races I've ever watched. I don't know if you watched it, but everything that could go wrong seemed to have gone wrong. Right?
Yeah.
We had a driver crash out. Scott McLaughlin, one of the best IndyCar racers, crashes out on the warm-up lap.
Mhm.
We had someone, an Andretti crash out. Marco Andretti crashes out, in lap 1, turn 1. We had a guy who crashed into the wall in the pit lane. We had a guy that ran over his own pit crew. Like, it was a crazy race. And then we had someone take over the lead right at the end. One of the most exciting Indy 500s I've seen in a long time. You know, it's interesting. It's really controversial here locally. The Indy 500 is blacked out unless it sells out. And a sellout for the Indy 500 is like 360,000 people. You know what I mean? It's not like a football game where it's like 80,000 or MLB game where it's like 30,000. And so this year was the first time in 9 years that it sold out since the 100th running of the Indianapolis 500. So people could watch it without a VPN and made it easier. But it was a crazy race. Did you watch it?
I did, yeah. It was, I don't watch too many IndyCar races, but the Indy 500 I do try to tune in. But yeah, that was crazy. I mean, so I watch NASCAR typically, so I'm
Yeah.
used to, like, you
Yeah.
kind of root for crashes, but that's not necessarily the
Sure.
go to when it's IndyCar. But yeah, it was crazy to see somebody, pace laps crash. And I knew the controversy going into it too with Penske as well. One of
Yep.
the big teams, and they really struggled. Not only in the Indy 500 but also on the NASCAR side of things. And they fired a couple of their big guys, so that was another big storyline.
Yeah, and not only that you found out that they actually had the same modified part for the year that they won last year. So
Yeah.
a big deal. Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. And I mean, that car's on display, so it's not even like they can argue that one.
Yeah. No, it's in the museum here. How fast do NASCARs? I don't watch a ton of NASCAR. I do watch the truck series. It's the only NASCAR I watch. I enjoy the truck series.
Mhm.
Maybe I'll catch like Daytona once every couple of years or whatever. But like my thing is they go like maybe 160 to 180 around some of these super speedways. Is that about right?
So in the truck series, that's probably right. Truck series, if you guys don't watch it, Frankie Muniz, the actor, is
Yeah.
a full-time truck driver.
Yeah,
That's
not a
crazy.
great one, but he is.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, he's at least, a professional NASCAR driver now.
Yeah,
So
that's crazy.
Malcolm in the middle. Yeah.
Yeah. Who would have
But
thought? Oh, that's so funny.
yeah, the cars, they've slowed them down. Normally they're around like 190 or so. They used
Okay.
to be like maybe 10 years ago, they'd go over 200.
Yeah.
But then they lowered the horsepower, put restrictor plates in there.
Yeah.
They used to be pushing 900 horsepower. I think now they're about 550 to 600.
Okay.
So
Yeah,
too
that's
too
interesting.
many crashes, I guess, was the reason.
Well, that's the thing. You look at those Indy cars, obviously the body and the way the Indy cars are built, they're much better designed to go fast. But those
Mhm.
cars explode when they hit the wall at 230 miles an hour. It's like every
Yeah.
crash looks terrible. And the guy gets up, walks away. Did we watch the hot dog car race? I did watch it.
Yeah.
It was on it's on YouTube for those that haven't watched it. It's like 12 or 13 minutes long. Very funny. A couple of the teams were teasing they were going to put their actual drivers in those cars before the race. Really entertaining stuff. That's what I like about the Indy 500 is it's really a like 2-week celebration of motorsports. Because they start testing the Monday before the race. They start practicing and then they do qualifying over 12 hours and 2 days the weekend before, and then you have stuff like the Wienermobile 500 or whatever it was called, and then the actual race. It's really cool to see, and it's one of the few races left really. Formula One used to do it all the time, and IndyCar used to do it all the time. If you pulled up with a car, you could try to qualify, and they don't really do that anymore, except for the Indy 500. And so you have some of these teams that like this is their whole year, or some of these drivers. Takuma Sato, who started second in the Indy 500, who's won it twice. That's the only race he does every year. And so there's all kinds of cool wild card stuff like that. But it's a lot of fun. And if you like motorsport at all, the IndyCar series is really fun to watch. They do road courses, they do street courses in cities, and they do ovals as well. So you kind of get a feel for everything. It's a lot of fun to watch.
Yeah, and fun fact, this is an old fact, but JJ Yeley, my favorite
Yeah,
NASCAR
yeah.
driver, I had my face on his car. He actually did participate in an Indy 500 before. So
Really?
he did. 1998, I was pulling up to see what he finished. 1998, he finished ninth in the Indy 500.
Wow.
So he does have that under his belt. He's done a lot of NASCAR, but he also is like originally, from the dirt side of racing.
Okay.
So,
Yeah, yeah.
midgets and those type of cars. But
That's cool. I did not
yeah,
know that.
yeah, it's an interesting fun fact. I think they also had a typo at one point where they said he was like the 2009 F1 world champion. That is not true. But if you ever see that like going around on the internet, there is Fox put up an infographic that said he was the champion, and he was not even racing. I don't think he's ever ran
That's so
an
funny.
F1 race.
Yeah. I don't think there's ever been any NASCAR and F1 champions. You know what I mean? The guys that did both. There has been IndyCar and Formula One because IndyCar used to be kind of the feeder series to Formula One before the Formula series. But yeah, that's funny though. It's not too late.
Yeah,
He could always go to Formula One now.
yeah, I guess so. NASCAR is getting a little bit more. I guess in the international market, they've got Shane
Sure.
Van Gisbergen, racing now. So it'll be interesting to see. Um,
How's your friend's race car team doing, Jake? That's what we got that question
yeah, I
in the
see
chat.
that. And I think we're talking about Brad Perez, who we've been on
Yeah,
the car a few times. He runs a limited schedule, so I've gotta see what we can work out with him. Maybe we'll be able to get the logo back on the car at some point this year. But he's running a limited schedule this year with Alpha Prime Racing, so a little bit better of a team, if I'm being completely honest.
yeah.
The team he ran for, that was one of the cars he ran last year. He also ran part time with Gase Emmerling or Joey Gase Racing,
Yeah.
but that's more of like not a start and park venture,
Okay.
but like one that's more towards the back end of the cars. Actually,
Yeah.
that's JJ Yeley just ran a race for them. That's typically the type of stuff he runs. But
Yeah.
yeah, he's running a part-time schedule. I think he's running a couple of ovals this year. Last year was his first time running an oval in the Xfinity cars.
Oh,
Normally he does do the road course racing.
yeah. He's a road course specialist, right?
Yep, he is. He's got an interesting story. I'll have to see if I can arrange to get him to share his story one of these times. But
Yeah.
he was a valet guy, and that's eventually rolled that into being kind of like an instructor and doing a bunch of odd jobs and rolling that into a NASCAR and racing career.
That's nuts. That would be a good movie. Was he just like getting all kinds of tickets in the valet business, and they're like, "Dude, you gotta go to
Yeah.
NASCAR."
I think he jumped from valet to the Miatas. I think that might have been like
Oh yeah,
what
yeah.
he
Okay.
started racing
Like the
after
MX
that.
series.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's really interesting. We should talk about it sometime, but anymore now. It was so expensive to get into racing, but now more and more people are doing sim racing to
Hmm.
pro racing. It was Max Verstappen, the world champion for Formula One, 2-time or 3-time reigning world champion now. He like qualifies in the morning and then runs a sim racing team on iRacing and runs that at night, which is really interesting. So, more guys that kind of get passed over and don't have the money and don't get picked up as a valet somehow, like have the talent but just never have the opportunity. So, it'd be interesting to see how they get more opportunity.
Yeah, and I know we've thrown this out before. Something we would like to do is the 24 hours of lemons. So hopefully that's something we can do. We'll have to put a camera on us for 24 straight hours and
Yeah.
see if we can find it's got to be a $500 car that can
Yep.
make it that distance. And there's an EV. That I think it'd be cool if somehow we could do it with an EV. I know there's an extra incentive with that.
Yeah. Do you remember what the incentive is?
I don't. I think it had something to do with pennies, if I remember.
Nickels, yeah, it's
Nickels. Okay.
$30,000 in nickels,
Yeah.
which weighs like 2.5 tons.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, that I really want to do that. That'd be fun. We could do so much. We've talked about this before, but like we could do so much band controlled stuff. The only like qualification you need to be a driver in that league is to have a license. So we could put a fan in the car to drive it. We could have fans pick the radio stations that we listen to or the playlists, right? Like we could have them pick the order, like all kinds of stuff. The design of the car. So yeah, I looked into it. It's it'll cost us, you're talking like $10,000 for a car once you get it, equipped. The car is $500, but all the safety equipment that goes into it is much more. So
Yeah.
but yeah, an electric car would be really cool.
Yeah, I know. I think we're finally at the point where they're starting to get cheaper, especially like the older ones. You might be able to find like in a couple of years maybe a Nissan Leaf, or like if you want to go like with a crazy one, the Mitsubishi i-MiEV or
Oh,
whatever
there's
they
a
called
really
that.
tiny one.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Looks like a golf cart.
Yeah. No, that's interesting. EVs are interesting because, and I think they like actually raised the limit on the price you can spend on cars if they're EVs. But they're interesting because, like, we know inherently when you drive a gas. This is my experience. I own an EV. I've owned an EV for like 4 years now. But like we know intellectually when we drive a gas car, if we drive it a little slower, the gas mileage is a little bit better. And that like if we fall behind a semi, right? Like we kind of understand like drafting and wind braking a little bit, right? But
Yeah.
I will tell you, it is even more pronounced in an EV. And so like when I drive my EV and like I'm getting close on range on things because I travel across the state a lot for work, I will like go behind a semi that's going like one under the speed limit and probably like give myself an extra 30 miles every hour
Wow.
or something. It's a big difference. And so that's what we got to do is we got to get a really tiny EV and then just draft behind cars the entire time and see how we do.
Yeah. Yeah, no, that would be fun. I used to have a Nissan Cube, so big box, and I can
Yeah,
tell you, you could definitely feel the difference in when you're drafting and when you're not. It feels like you're gonna flip sometimes in a car like
yeah,
that.
yeah. Oh, I imagine so. No,
Yeah.
if we do it, I want like the weirdest car we can find. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like, yeah. Right now, you can buy a 2014 MIEV. Those original ones, less than $4,000.
Yeah, they're getting
So
close.
they're coming down. Yeah. So, but yeah, no, I want something really weird. You know what I mean? So, but it would be fun. We got to get into it. Maybe one day we'll put Knight in the car. Knight Jay Wright. We'll put him in the car. Have him drive.
Yeah.
You just need to like what I've learned. I've watched a little bit of endurance racing in the last couple of years. You just got to have like a really good driver in the beginning so they don't wreck the car with all the other cars, and then you can kind of figure it out from there. You know what I mean?
Mhm. Yeah, and we'll have to figure out something like if we can get swappable batteries or like how we would charge it and
Oh.
such. Because I know that Mitsubishi one. I don't think the range is good at all on that.
No, I think it's like 100 miles.
Yeah.
Yeah, and if you're doing a 24-hour race, and that's like at like 50 miles an hour, you're probably talking more like 60 miles if you're like driving it full out. Knight says he gets to drive last so he doesn't wreck it. We'll put him in. Then he's the one taking the checkered flag. That's where the glory is. So that's where I'd want to go too.
Yeah. That's assuming the car makes it that long.
That's right. Yeah.
Yeah.
No, but we'd have to get some guys that like know what they're doing.
Mm-hmm.
But
Well, I think we're a little bit past the hour mark on the episode. Was there anything else you wanted to hit on for tonight's episode 91?
No, I think it's been a great episode. I'm glad to be back. I want to attend a bunch of these this summer in the off season while I have some time, and just chat up sports with you and the Instigators and all the other stuff we got going on. Start talking some baseball. We can do highlights from the from amateur night. We can talk about the Ballers, which I'm really excited. I've been watching Ballers games on the streaming service, and so I think it'll be a lot of fun.
Yeah, definitely. Like we said, we'll be back for episode 92 next week, but we also have amateur night coming back next Saturday. So
Next Saturday,
have
June 6th at 1.
yeah, so we've got multiple streams coming up here. Definitely have some stuff for you guys to watch. Not only through our Patreon, but again through our Twitch. So looking forward to that. But I think that's going to do it for tonight's episode. Episode 91, 9 away from 100 of Instigate Success, building an ABA franchise. Until next time, as always, be great and instigate.